Hi, I'm Mal from the Money Study, bringing you an episode in the Take 10 Challenge, where I challenge you to spend 10 minutes a day focusing on your money. And this is number 2, and this is all about having that money mindset, understanding what money is all about, making it work for you. Before we kick off, there's the disclaimer: facts and figures, information only, not advice in any of these sessions. Okay, those who claim to be good with their money and those who are good with their money, it can be often be a different thing, but those who generally speaking do okay with their money are pretty organised, they're in control, they know what they're doing, they can keep track of where it's going and what they're spending it on and so forth. So just being organised can be quite enough just to get you started when you're going down this track of looking after our money. But look, don't punish yourself because you made some errors in the past. We've all done it, and I've made my quota in the past, and listening to the next get quick scheme, or believing someone who gives you a bit of a tip, only to find out that it certainly wasn't the best path for financial wealth, that's for sure. But look, we can't go back and punish ourselves. We can't work with hindsight. And so it goes on. So we just really got to just move on. We made a mistake. Let's fix it. Let's learn from our mistakes and benefit in the future. And these people who are indeed on top of their money, in control, they know that it's just a tool. It's just a tool. They've got this ability to look after their money. Money is just a tool to get them what they need. It is certainly not the target. We're not just trying to aim for money. What we're trying to do is to understand your money, that we're not being stressed by it, and we've got enough to do the things that we want to do. So generally speaking, having some goals and being realistic with these goals is going to help. That I need to get out of debt by 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I need to have some money saved. I need an emergency fund in case something goes wrong. I need to be able to pay for my daughter's wedding whenever it may happen, and so it goes on. Having these goals and then being able to work out what we need to do to get there, it forces you to become organised, to get it done. So setting goals and even writing them down and working out exactly how you're going to achieve it can also be very useful. Having a reason to be good with money is certainly one of the things that I find helps. So that, if you're absolutely, certainly helped me. I was dead broke, and I knew damn well that I was going to have a pretty miserable old age if I didn't do something. So having a reason, now it doesn't have to be something drastic. It can literally be that, yep, I want to upgrade my car, or I want to have an overseas holiday every 2 years, or whatever it may be. Is setting as your goal, your reason to get on top of all of this. But of course, is having more money, is it the thing that you really have to do? I mean, sounds like a dumb question. I mean, we in theory, all we really need is enough money to put the food on the table, provide for our shelter, and have a bit of fun, with the money. But of course, every extra bit of dollars, few extra dollars that we've got, that gives us those choices and options and the ability to pick and choose between what we do and how we spend our day. So it literally comes down to, this old story of how much is enough, how much do I really need? Because there's an interesting thing where having more doesn't actually increase your satisfaction. There's a sort of a cut-off that, yes, having more is nice, but you don't get any more happy because you've got it. They say that the happiness cut-off in Australia is about $125,000 a year. So if you've got $125,000 worth of income, then if you go to 130, it's not really going to make you that percentage happier because you've got that extra money. Having that sort of income, generally speaking, gives you sufficient income to do, just the things that will elevate you from miserable in theory. Okay. A 2022 survey showed Australians believe you need $325,000 per annum, and yet the studies show that about 125 or more doesn't really improve the happiness. And I can tell you, I've had some clients that are getting this sort of more than $325,000 a year. Even in retirement, I had a couple who were going to retire on in excess of this number, in excess of, I think it was $340,000 a year net in their hand, and it was insufficient. They couldn't live on only that amount of money. And were they happy? Not in the slightest. They were absolutely miserable people. Nothing would have made them happy, certainly not a few extra dollars. So, you've got to be realistic about this whole business of, making money. It's fine. We've got to work out what we need, how much is sufficient. We don't want to just keep on concentrating, spending and earn more money, if in theory we're spending all our time earning money rather than being able to enjoy the money that we actually indeed have already earned. Now, of course, if we own a bigger house, and this is what's happening basically globally in the Western societies, that people are just building bigger and bigger houses. I mean, I'm living here in Canberra, and some of the newer suburbs, I mean, the blocks are smaller, but the houses take up the whole block, and they're huge. And we've got young couples moving into a house with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and triple garage, and all this sort of business. Do we really need to have that sort of a house? And then, of course, we have this house, we've got to fill it, and it's got to be filled with, the matching everything. I had some friends recently where they tried to give their daughter a toaster, but because it didn't match her jug, then wasn't interested, even though she really couldn't afford to go out and buy a new toaster. So, yeah, look, this whole image thing is certainly not good, again, for wealth creation. And of course, having the house filled with all these possessions, does that indeed make us happier? Big house, more to clean. So, do you really believe the key to happiness is more money? I think it's a question that you need to ask yourself, that is for sure. And do you buy things to make you happy? I mean, you hear about this, the retail therapy. You're feeling a bit down, so you go into town and basically go and buy yourself something to make you feel better. But for how long do you when you get it home and unwrap it, and then you've used it, and then what? Are you happy tomorrow? Obviously it depends on what you've bought, obviously. If it's something you've been aiming for and it's a goal and you finally achieve that goal, let's hope it does make you happy, because that's what you've been setting your targets on. But if it's just a bit of retail therapy, not convinced. Do you go into debt to buy Christmas presents? Look, I see this too often. Far too often, where especially younger parents, they're buying their kids everything that they ever need and more, and literally the day after Christmas is all over and the excitement's all over, some of these things will then sit in the corner of the playroom or whatever for many months to come, and then get thrown out in the garbage. So to go into debt to buy presents, I mean, it's all very well to be generous if you give them to your friends and family and so forth, but if you can't really afford it, let's get a bit practical here, and start to think of having a discussion with your friends and family to say, look, let's be a little bit more realistic. If the cost of living is going up, can we all afford to give each other these presents and so forth? Do we need to give everybody a present? I'm not trying to make everyone out to be a bit of a hard person to get on with and not being very generous. But by the same token, we've got to be sensible in this whole scenario. Because often if you've gone into debt, all it's doing is creating more anxiety for you. Is that really what you're after? Seeing someone put a smile on their face for a short time and then but put you into going backwards with your finances. Do you link who you are and your self-worth to your net worth? So you think that the more money you've got, you're a better person? Because if you do, you've got problems. We don't tie, who we are and what we are and think about ourselves because of how much money we've got. I would rather think your self-worth has gone up if you're able to handle the money that you've got and get the money that you need, But to think I'm worth more personally simply because I've got another, 50,000 in the bank account, no, sorry, that doesn't work. Do you find yourself comparing yourself to everybody, your neighbours, your colleagues and so forth? That's a dangerous move. That is a dangerous thing to be doing because you don't know what your neighbours are up to. Might look good, but you've just got to make sure that we don't need to worry about what everybody else does. We don't need to worry about it. It's you have to worry about. It's up to you. Are you in the situation that you want to be in financially? And if you're not, what are we going to do about it? And that's what these little exercises are going to do for us over the coming months and possibly years. Do you bury your head in the sand? Something happens financially and you go, oh, another bill, but then you don't change anything. And when a bill comes in again, you go through the same exercise. You've got to change things. If it's not working, you've got to change it. It's the end of story. If we're spending more than we earn, it's got to stop. It's common sense. You cannot keep on going backwards. You can't keep on losing money. You've got to be making positive steps going forward. Okay. But this whole business of comparing ourselves, as I say, it's dangerous anyway. But I mean, your friend, they've got a big car, they've got a big house. Many times they've got a big debt. You see, you're only worth what you own minus what you owe. That's your wealth. It's what you've got minus your debt. That's who you are. It's not the total sum of everything you own, because if you've got all this debt, you may be no better off than someone's got a small amount of assets, but with no debt. It's all about is your money coming in sufficient to service the debt? It's all relative, if you're earning more money but you've got bigger expenses and bigger debt, then we need more money, and so it goes on. See, the example at the bottom here, who's better off? Someone with a $3 million house but $2.6 million in debt, or someone who owns their only $1.5 million house with no debt? So to live in a $3 million house is apparently, I wouldn't know, supposed to be nice, and it probably is, but not if I had a $2.6 million debt to go with it. I would never be able to lie in bed and enjoy it. I'd be worrying about how on earth I'm going to pay down $2.6 million. And don't think that a $2.6 million debt on a home is unrealistic. I see it. And these people are, getting towards retirement with debts in excess of $2 million, and they're just wondering what on earth they're going to do when they stop work, if they ever can afford to stop work. And of course, debt on personal items, and I'm talking about cars and boats and caravans and TVs and electronic goods and you name it. Of course, is money that could be put somewhere else. Now, of course, we're after these things to enjoy it, but if you've got to take on debt to get them all, that extra debt, that money you've got to find every fortnight to pay down this debt, is basically money that could be used to grow your wealth in an investment, which is what we're going to talk about much later on down the track here. See, we need to look at what you actually have got, and we're going to do some, looking at what we've got personally in steps going forward here. But, the example here is that John, he's got $3 million net assets, so he owns $3 million worth of things in theory, whereas his mate Roger, he's only got $1.5 million in assets. And who is more financially independent to do what they want? And you think that the guy with $3 million worth of assets is going to be the guy that can do whatever he wants. And if their expenses were the same, so they spend the same amount of money, then you'd think, yep, John's the guy that's better off. He's got $3 million, he's got the same expenses as Roger, but Roger's only got half as much in assets. But what are the assets? What are these things that these guys own? What if John's wealth is tied up in his home, his car, and his boat? So he's got $3 million worth of things, But Roger's wealth, the big chunk of it, is in an investment portfolio generating $50,000 a year. And so if what about if John spends 120? So even if their expenses were different. So it just comes down to, this whole business of what you've got is irrelevant. It's what is coming in cash flow. Where's the money coming from? Because if John can get $50,000 a year from his investment portfolio, that's $50,000 a year he doesn't have to find from working or his retirement portfolio, and so it goes on. So it's a case of what we're going to try and do here is to build up wealth, find some income, find some spare income. We're going to try to make it grow, and the money that it grows, we're going to take that to buy more things that will make it grow, and so on, and so on, and so on. So if you can manage your money and do it well, then that'll provide you with security, flexibility, options, and choices. So you get to choose what you want to do, when you want to do it, and so it goes on. It's never too late to start this, but of course, the older you are, the harder it gets. And starting in your 50s is a lot harder than doing this when you're in 20 and 30. And of course, if you're in your mid 60s, we're certainly finding it exceedingly difficult if we had a lot of dumb decisions early on in our life. But it's never too late to start. To say it's still too late, I'm not going to worry about it, that is burying your head in the sand. You've got to start thinking that if I can learn to save, then literally means I don't need as much money in retirement because I've learned to live on less. And some of this thinking too about buying bits and pieces, would you change your opinion of someone simply because they bought a cheap car? If you've got a friend and they turned up in a little, whatever it may be, little cheap something or other, Chinese car, Korean car, or whatever it might be, when you drive around in your European flash luxury car, would you feel, you might think you're superior, but are you? Would you actually feel less about them as a friend? Because if they are a real friend, you don't judge them by what car they drive. That's for sure. But I reckon that I'm going to leave you with this last thought. Would you still buy the same item if no one could see your purchase? So you bought something, beautiful thing, be it a jewellery or clothing or a new car. You bought this thing, but no one was ever going to see it. Would you still have bought it? Are you getting the pleasure out of it, you personally, or are you buying it to impress everybody else? I'll leave you with that thought, and and I think you should ask yourself that question every time you pull out your wallet for something that's, dare I say, a little bit on the expensive side. We're here to help. Any issues you may have, you can always book us through their website on The Money Study. Looking forward to joining you on future regular sessions.